See, you thought I was gonna miss my daily diary, but you thought wrong. Because it might be 5:30 in the morning and I haven't slept, but
That's just par for the course for me at this point, isn't it?
all right. um, don't worry about that. Check it out. I got work on the game done. I have been implementing. This is level 5. As you can see, level 5 is the first level that goes beyond the levels that you guys could play in the demo. And these prototypes for these levels were pretty old, so I've had to spend a bunch of time bringing them up to standard for all the stuff I did for the demo. And then the next thing I did was I got my archers in the game. They were always here, but I had to do all their animations and their art and implement all that stuff, so they're working now. Let's take a look. I still need to set up their attack animation. You'll see that in a second. Oh shit. Okay. So, so you can see there, he goes with the kamikaze attack animation for a second. So yeah, I still have to do the attack. Oh, I thought you turned this music down. So I still have to do the attack animation, but otherwise, you can see them walking around. You can see they've got the death sprites are set up. Whoop. Their little bows fall there. And of course, I need to still implement all the art for the level itself as well. So I'm gonna do the attacking animation tomorrow, and hopefully the level art as well. Get that set up and the lighting and all that. I don't know why they're not highlighting. I have to look into that too. But yeah, you can see they do fire their arrows though. Come get me, son. All right. Pretty cool, pretty sick stuff. Here, I've been taking a look at, I have to make a final decision on my logo for my company. So it's come down to all of these, and I have to say, I am once again thinking about the, sorry, not this one. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about the original one. The, here it is. The AI generated one. It still really might be the best, man. It's pretty legit. Compared to these, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I mean, I know it feels weird to use an AI generated one for something so personal, but it really is just killer. You know, normally I feel like AI produces dog shit for everything, but in this case, it's such a simple thing that it seems to have actually done a good job. I mean, these are cool too, but I don't know if any of them catch the tone, the vibe as well as this one does. Yeah, I don't know, man. I gotta sleep on this. Gotta sleep on it. Especially when I listen to the song from my game. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm talking about? It's pretty legit, man. I don't know. I'll figure it out. You know, one thing that's stupid with ChatGPT is I don't like how I've become too reliant on sending it. Like, I'll write something up, like a message I'm sending someone. Not all the time, not on like Discord or something. But if I have to write Well, actually, I'll show you what I was talking about. If I have to write a response to like a review, for example, which is what I was dealing with today, I don't like how I've become reliant on going to ChatGPT, and I don't ask it to write it for me. I always write my own stuff, but I'll just paste my stuff and see what it has to say about it. And it's annoying because it seems to be programmed to always give you feedback, to offer like polishes on what you wrote, no matter what you wrote. Like I will paste it whatever I wrote, it gives me some feedback, and I might be like, okay, yeah, I like how it switched these two words around. Sure, I'll keep that change. And then I'll paste it, the new version, back into it again, and it'll make like another suggestion. You know what I mean? Like it just arbitrarily makes suggestions. Sometimes I'll paste it something and it switches things up, and it's just like, this is literally just a worse version of what I already wrote. I don't know. It's annoying. And anyway, when I see things like that, it makes me question like, I don't like how I'm increasingly not trusting my own voice and my own instincts to do things. I mean, I still do for the most part and tell it to piss off when it's making stupid suggestions. But it really makes me feel like I should just like stop using it. You know what I mean? Just cut myself off completely. Let my own skill speak for itself. Let my own mistakes speak for themselves. Who cares if not everything I write is as perfect as it could possibly be, because it came from the soul, you know? Yeah. As for the Steam review, the thing I was talking about, I'm not going to go too much into it because I already spent enough time being annoyed by it today. But basically, when I first released the demo soon after, a guy left a review that right off the bat I was already annoyed with, because it was the first review of the game that was largely critical, and he wasn't a fan of it. He thought it was too stressful and unfun. And it annoyed me because he made a bunch of critiques of it, and some of them I thought were legitimate, but they were all pretty minor. And I was kind of suspicious that, like, while some of them were sort of legit, nonetheless, I feel like these are all minor enough things that if you really like the game, this isn't really going to change your opinion all that much. And also, some of what he wrote was just kind of objectively wrong. So I had a theory that what was really going on in this guy's review is that he's just not a fan of the game. Like it's just not for him, and really he's kind of just bad at it. But and so he did something that a lot of people do, right? Where when you suck at a game, instead of being just like, okay, I suck at it, you're like, oh, actually, it's the game's fault. So it kind of annoyed me a bit, and I thought I could still be wrong though. Like, it's possible also that maybe he would normally like the game, but a bunch of little things add up and it just pushes him over the edge, right? So I went and took feedback from like tons and tons of people that had played the demo, and as you all watching might know, whoever is watching this, within a couple of weeks I put out an updated version of the demo with all of the feedback taken into account, and I'm very happy with where it's at now. That's how I released it. And right after I did that, I noticed that review from that guy was getting a lot of marks of people putting it as like people marking it as a helpful review. And so this was increasingly bothering me, because I'm like, okay, well, this looks stupid because this is going to push it to the top of the reviews, and people are going to be misled by this. Like, this guy's review really wasn't accurate, and he's complaining about stuff that literally no one else complains about, and it really does come across like these are skill issues on his part. And so it annoyed me that people are coming to the page probably, and I'm sure a bunch of people have probably seen that review and were probably like, whatever, I guess I won't try it then. It sounds like it's kind of still a work in progress or something, and it's wrong. And I understand that, because I myself, when I look at games, sometimes will specifically look for the negative review to see, okay, what did someone not like about this? Maybe it's the kind of thing I would dislike, right? But that can be very misleading if the person is like giving kind of a biased review based on, you know what I mean, skill issues or something like that. Anyway, so because I saw it getting marked like that as helpful, I thought, well, I can't just let this review stand. I have to at least respond to this, because it's just really not representative of the game, and I wouldn't want too many people to miss out on it just because of that. So I wrote a response to the review where I said, I kind of implied that was a little bit of a skill issue on his part, but I was basically like, I took feedback into account and I've updated the demo and I smoothed out the learning curve and all that. So, hey, if you're curious, maybe give it a shot sometime. And I was curious. I really wanted to see, was it what I was suspecting was the issue, which is that this game just really isn't for him, or maybe it really was just some of these problems. And I kind of forgot about it, but then just today I happened to be checking the page and I noticed that he had updated his review. So he did go back and try it and I appreciated that. And so he posted, this updated version of it, and he basically just had the exact same complaints again, except this time now it was even more incredibly misleading. Like now he was complaining about things that are just like literally wrong. Like he seemed to have somehow really misunderstood how certain things in the game work. And most of his critiques boiled down to things like basically he would make a mistake. He would describe a mistake he made in the game, but then write it and explain it as if like the game somehow made that happen, rather than him clearly just screwing up his input or aiming incorrectly or whatever. So now I was really annoyed because now I also noticed that not only that he wrote another review, that I was right about my theory, that he really is basically just blaming the game for his own skill issues. And even more people are now voting this review up as helpful. Like not a ton more or anything, but still there was like 1 or 2 new ones. And so I was like, I don't know, just annoyed by that again. So I went and edited my response and was just like, sorry man, this game is just not for you, and let anyone reading this to know that like this really isn't reflective of the game, and I'd recommend you try the game yourself anyway. I don't mind that's the game's not for everyone. That doesn't bother me, but when someone makes a critique like that and presents it as if it's like a problem with the game, as if it's, because seriously, half the stuff he writes in there, it almost makes it sound like there's just bugs happening in the game, and it's just not true. And even that on its own wouldn't bother me so much if it was just whatever, one of a bunch of reviews. But the fact that it's not only misleading and inaccurate, but also people are like hitting it as helpful. And this guy's complaints also are things that literally no one else has complained about as well. Like you just put all this together and it's just so annoying having to sit there as a developer and see that and be like, cool, a bunch of people aren't going to play the game because of this dude's like very misleading review because of his own skill issues. Whatever. It is what it is though. I guess you gotta deal with that, right? No matter what. Especially as a game, if it gets even bigger, there's always gonna be a bunch of reviews of people who are gonna say things that will that you will disagree with, that you will not like. Such is the nature of such things. And it's not the worst. I've definitely seen significantly more unfair reviews from other Steam pages. You know what I will say also? One thing that really annoys me, when I see on other game pages, someone leaves a negative review, right? And let's say it's like really brutal. Like they're just like, this game fucking sucks and this developer is incompetent and all this stuff. And then you see the developer responded and the developers are always like, hey, thanks so much for playing the game. We hear you and your concerns are totally valid. I'm always like, why are you talking to this guy like this? Like, I'm not saying you have to be unprofessional and tell him to go fuck himself or something, but it's like, I hate how developers try, because it's so fake. Like, someone comes up to you and is just like, yo, this thing you made is fucking garbage, dude. And you're just like, hey, your concerns are valid. Thanks for letting me know how you feel. It's like so inhuman. Like, let's be real. You're probably sitting there reading that being like, fuck this guy. Right? So anyway, and the funny thing too is when I was using ChatGPT, like I did that. I wrote my response that I was going to put for this guy and I sent it to ChatGPT. And one of the first suggestions it made was exactly like that. Be like, hey, it's okay that you feel that way and that's totally valid or something. I literally told ChatGPT like, yo, shut the fuck up and stop suggesting me things like this. This guy is to some extent condescendingly talking down the design of my game, and when it's like his own skill issues, and you think I'm gonna come in here and be like hey, you don't like the game? That's totally valid. Like, get the fuck out of here.
I don't think so, man. Get good. That's my style. That's my response. It's like, yeah, you don't like the game, bud? Get good, okay? Anyway, speaking of which, speaking of not giving a shit, I noticed recently that I have burned a good like 20 subscribers off of the past 10 or so videos I've posted. And as twisted as this is, and as ironic as it is, I have to say I'm very much enjoying it. It's really put me in the mindset of just feeling so much more free and like not caring and being like, whatever, man. You know what I mean? Like it's given me this newfound freedom to do like whatever I want, make my videos the way I do. I've like lost so much of a sense of any kind of like self-consciousness or overthinking things or whatever. I don't know, maybe that seems a little ironic considering how much that review bothered me, but but overall it's an improvement for me. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm feeling this strong attitude now of a lot. I used to be so much more paranoid about posting stuff and being like, what if this affects my viewership? What if it affects my counts, my follower counts, my whatever? Same on TikTok, on wherever. Whenever I post, I was always like calculating so much. What will happen if I do this? Posting these videos has put me into a whole new mindset where I'm just like, I don't even think about it now. I don't care. I don't bother checking stuff. I'm just like, throw it up. Hey, 30 views. Sick. Awesome. 1 like, 1 or 2 likes. That's it. That's all I need, dude. So shout out to those of you who've been watching this stuff. And for those who unsubscribe, hey, that's cool. I get it. If I'm not your jam, I'm not your jam, I guess. What can I say? You know, it's a real shame that I'm so damn tired. It's like, look at this. Look at this view, bro. Look at that beautiful sunrise. And I say it's a shame because I can't appreciate it. Because my reaction to that sunlight right now is like, you know, it's burning my eyeballs. I just want to sleep, which I'll do in a second, but not until I upload this video. Topic prepared for today. I don't have too much to say about it because honestly it's pretty brain dead obvious in my opinion, but nonetheless I'm gonna express this anyway. The topic is political values are not the same thing as moral values. Now, the inspiration for this topic is that I saw a bunch of comments recently. Usually this tends to come from more liberal leaning people who will say that your politics are a reflection of your morals. And this is often used in a context of justifying, you know, not associating with certain people or being friends with certain people automatically because they have different political views from you. And I wanted to, this is not about expressing any particular political opinion of my own. I just wanted to make the philosophical argument to point out that, as a matter of fact, I would say more often than not, political values are very much not a reflection of moral values, and that they're two pretty distinct things. So, the way I wanted to make this argument is to just give some examples. Let's talk about taxation and social services. The moral value that I would say that people have in common here, and that almost everyone agrees upon, is that ideally nobody wants people to be poor or to be stuck in lower classes or to have a really low quality of life. But the difference between, for example, a conservative and a liberal is how you go about approaching that problem and what the correct solution to it is. So for a conservative, typically it'll be things like, well, they believe that a person needs to be put into a position to be able to help themselves. That a person helping themselves is like the best kind of help that they can get. And so the best way to help people who are poor is to give them the most opportunities possible to help themselves, which usually means things like cutting taxes and stimulating the economy, allowing the economy to run the free market in such a way as to make it possible for people to get jobs, to have a lot of upward social mobility and economic mobility, and so on. And of course, the liberal point of view is to have higher taxes and to, for the most part, essentially redistribute wealth from the richest people to the poorest by giving more direct assistance through welfare, through social services, and so on. And in real life, if you have any experiences, you of course should know that both of these points of view have legitimacy to them. You surely have had people in your life who you know really just need to get their shit together. They really do just need like a slap across the head and they can't really be directly helped. They're the types of people who, if you give them direct assistance, they tend to take advantage of it. And they're in a position where they really need to find their own motivation. On the other hand, there are of course also people who run into bad times and who are very much helped by being given direct help and who take great advantage of that. And which of these situations, which of these is like the correct solution, is extremely circumstantial. It can depend on the kind of person. Like some people, I would say like myself, I'm the kind of person where I'm more motivated by having like pressure put onto me and being forced to kind of like figure things out on my own. But then there's other people who don't do well under those situations, or there's other people who more thrive from being given more direct help. So it depends on the person, it can depend on the situation. And either way, the point is these are both, like neither of these are right or wrong. They're just two different ways of addressing the problem, and whether or not they work just kind of depends on the situation. And my point being here, of course, is that this has nothing to do with one's moral values. Like it is not that one side hates poor people and the other one just likes them so much. It's just that one side sees the other as naive, the other side sees them as cruel, but the reality is like the moral values are the same. Nobody, except for maybe some fringe of truly evil people or something, is like, oh, we shouldn't care about poor people at all. It's just that, or people who are struggling, it's just that the best way to go about helping them is where the disagreement is. You also have something like healthcare, for example. You might believe in universal healthcare because you want everyone to have a certain minimum standard of care. This is another case where I would say the moral value of, should everyone have access to a certain minimum standard of healthcare? Should we help people who are in difficult situations with their health? Again, most people would probably agree with that, but conservatives would believe that the free market allows for costs to be brought down as low as possible and to keep it as cheap as possible, while simultaneously allowing the quality of care to be as high as possible, because it allows for profits, which allow for more research and development, and then that continues to drive costs down to make it more affordable for everyone while also increasing the quality. On the other hand, of course, is the problem that, well, some people might still get left behind by that. So liberal side says, well, no, to ensure everybody gets helped out, it should be available to everyone, and you know, the rich should be taxed for that so that it's distributed to everyone. But the downside there, of course, is that that might cause inefficiencies, because conservatives often think that the government is really bad and inefficient at running services, and that it can cause healthcare costs to be more than they need to be, and that such a system could also be exploited in certain ways by certain people. Yeah, but anyway, once again, the moral values are not necessarily what's at play. Now, they could be what's at play. For example, it's entirely possible that someone actually really does think that if you're poor, you don't deserve healthcare. Usually, I think that's probably a pretty fringe opinion, but it is possible for someone to have different moral values like that. But you can't tell just from what their political position alone is, because you don't know why they have the position they do, right? So I feel like if you want to know what a person's values are, their moral values, then you should ask them about their moral values and not assume things based on their political position. You should ask them, hey, do you think everyone should have access to a minimum standard of healthcare? Do you think society has a responsibility to the people who are the poorest? Things like that, and that will tell you directly what that person's values actually are. Whereas if you just assume, well, he's conservative, he's conservative, so he thinks that I don't know, he doesn't give a shit about poor people, or this person's liberal, so they're like naive and they think we should all sacrifice ourselves to help everyone else, or whatever. Like, the point is, you can't make these kinds of assumptions. And I think one of the best examples of this is actually what I was talking about yesterday about my opinions on abortion. Technically, morally, I actually have the same moral values as someone who is pro-life. But politically, I have a different opinion from them because I don't think it should be illegal. So that's a good example where you can have an example of that. Again, the same moral values, but actually different political values. On the other hand, it's also possible that I could be pro-choice because I actually don't think there's anything morally wrong with abortion at all, in which case I have different political and moral values, right? So again, like, the thing you would want to ask the person if you wanted to know about their moral values there is you would ask specifically, do you think there's any kind of moral issue with abortion, as opposed to asking, what do you think the best policy would be, right? In fact, even funny enough, I remember seeing some videos of someone interviewing a group of pro-life protesters once, and they specifically, and it was like some old ladies or something like that, and they specifically asked her, like, oh, okay, so what do you think should happen to a woman who gets an abortion? Like, should they go to prison? And she was like, well, no, I just don't think they should do it. So even some people who are conservative like that are like, you know, even when they're against it, they don't necessarily have like pro-life political issues per se. So, and I had one last argument I wanted to make about this, actually. To go back to what I said yesterday about making the strongest possible argument against this, is I also want to say, even let's suppose that your political values are a reflection of your moral values, that someone who disagrees with you politically actually is just evil. I would argue that even in that case, it's still not the best thing to treat those people by like completely isolating them and just not associating with them at all. I would assume that no matter what your views are, you want the world to hopefully adhere to your views. You want to convince as many people as possible to agree with you and to move the world in the direction that you want. Now, what is most likely to make that happen? Telling anyone who disagrees with you that they're a piece of shit and then never talking to them again? Like, I mean, even just saying that makes you kind of laugh, right? Or engaging in a conversation with them. Hell, even more influential, most likely, being their friend. I think when you treat people as taboo, or you tell them that they're bad just for having different opinions from you, their reaction usually is like the total opposite of what you would want. They're almost certain, first of all, they're not going to change their minds. If they change their minds, it's not because you changed their mind, it's because they just don't want to deal with these consequences. And most likely what usually happens is people just double down. They feel victimized, they feel threatened. So as a defense mechanism, even if their viewpoint is irrational, they double down on that. A good example of it would be something like, nowadays, occasionally you might hear a conservative say something like, you know, as a straight white male, I'm kind of prosecuted now, right? Like anywhere I go, like people are prejudiced against me or whatever. Now, in reality, that's obviously pretty silly. Other than on the internet, maybe no one really cares. But you can see how they feel that way and they start thinking that way because of how people talk to them, right? You put them in a position where you tell someone you're a bad person for thinking this way, like especially if it's something that they see as a part of their identity, their reaction's not going to be like, oh, yeah, you're right, I'm a bad person. Like, their reaction is going to be to double down and to be like, okay, so now I'm the victim actually, and it's taboo, and you know what I mean? Like, you just empower people really when you try to push them away. You give them an excuse to feel like maybe they are speaking truth to power because look at how you're reacting to them. I remember there's this one black guy in the US who's kind of famous for having converted a huge number of former KKK members into becoming friends of his and like giving up their KKK. And I think he actually had like a collection of their outfits that he kept as like memorabilia of all these guys that he converted away from that. And of course he did that by being friends with these guys, by approaching him and not like telling them to piss off, but instead questioning them and asking, like, why do you hate me? Like, what do you know about me? What can you judge me on? And so on. And that's how it always is, right? If you're friends with someone, what's the best way to change their mind? And they do something bad. I mean, even think about it, the very nature of friendship. And a friend of yours does some stupid thing or has some beliefs that you think are wrong. Is the friend thing to do to just like immediately abandon them and not interact with them anymore? No. The real true friend thing to do is to call them out on it and to try to get them to see the right way and hope that you can you can change their minds and I'm sorry, I'm very tired. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes, to be fair, in some cases, sometimes you do have to let go of a friend if it's like you've tried everything and this person just insists on it. There are situations where someone really doesn't know how to change their mind about something until they're put in a position where they realize they're losing things because of that. But I think that's like the last resort thing. And also, this is a very sketchy way of looking at this, because to remember, we're talking about differences in political values, and it's not always clear that like you have the right political value and your friend doesn't, and he needs to be corrected. And you know what I mean? This is where it's also, you have to get careful about, is this a moral difference in values with your friend and that's what you're trying to help them with? Or is it a political value difference only, in which case you probably shouldn't come at it from the perspective of like you're superior to them morally just because of that. So but yeah, anyway, I don't think it happens all that often in real life that people are seriously ending relationships over their political differences. I honestly think that's some pretty insane stuff, and it's probably a mostly online weirdo kind of thing. But nonetheless, you seem to hear a lot about it nowadays, and I don't know, I came across this originally on TikTok when I saw some video kind of related to this, and just it was frankly stunning to me, the amount of people and how casually are just like straight seem to cut people out of their lives because they have different views from them, and they just automatically think anyone who thinks differently from them must be evil. And I don't know, it's pretty crazy. And I have to say, actually, something interesting here is, for me personally, I've always really liked talking to people who think very differently from me. I don't really get people who are super like, you believe something different from me, like you're terrible. Like, yo, even if I think someone is terrible, like I meet some straight up neo-Nazi, I find them interesting. I'll be honest. I want to know, because I want to know, like, how did they get to their point of view? Those kinds of fringe extreme beliefs are really interesting to me psychologically, because I'm really curious, like, how did this person develop their worldview? Because to me, it's almost impossible to understand. And it doesn't just have to be the stereotypical, like, whatever, like some racist or something. I mean, it's everything. Like, I think, like, the most hardcore feminists are interesting to me. I think, like, incel types are interesting. I used to love spending time on the forums of these kinds of fringe groups and reading their beliefs about things, because like I said, there's just something fascinating about people to me who think so radically differently from most other people. And one thing that I learned in the process of doing this, and I don't do this anymore because I found that at a certain point, if you spend a little too much time reading these people's stuffs from any group like this, it really does start to fuck with you a little bit. Like, it starts getting into your head and you start to notice yourself like thinking in their terms in your day-to-day life. It gets a little weird. So I kind of stopped doing it now. But one thing I learned from reading literature from all these different weirdo groups is the one thing they all have in common is they start with some observation they make about society, some kind of problem that they notice that most people don't talk about, and which is true and like a legitimate point that they have to make and is a proper thing to complain about. But then they get so obsessed with this one thing, and it's something that that most people like gloss over and which is ignored, and they just get so fixated on it and so obsessed with it that they start to develop their entire worldview around this one issue. And everything is seen through that lens. And then increasingly over time, their ideology just gets more and more deranged and disconnected from reality and how most people are seeing things and living their life. And it was just interesting to see. I shouldn't say like that they always have some kind of central truth, because like, I mean, I don't know if I would say like neo-Nazis have any kind of real point to make, for example. but some of these groups do. Like, you look at like the most radical feminists, like there are obviously real historical issues with women being treated as second-class citizens and so on. But when you get so fixated with that idea, it gets to a point where you start thinking increasingly crazy things. You start thinking that, you get to the point of acting like every man is literally Satan incarnate, and every woman is completely blameless and flawless and has never done anything wrong. And you might think I'm exaggerating, or I'm making like a straw man out of feminist positions or something, but it unironically really is like that. Like, just because remember also, I'm not just talking about some average everyday woman who thinks she should be equal to men or whatever. That's fine. That kind of ordinary everyday feminist. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the most hardcore, like radical feminists. It's on like a different level, and they will unironically talk about things like this. And the same goes, of course, with something like incels, who also they notice this truth that how attractive you are as a person can have a big impact on your quality of life. Now, that's true, and a lot of people in society kind of like don't really talk about that and kind of gloss over it. And if you point that issue out, especially if you're someone who maybe like struggles with that, people will kind of like bullshit you and pretend like it's not really a problem and patronize you and all that kind of stuff. But then they take this one little truth and then they blow it up into insane proportions. Like, if unless you're literally like among the best looking people in the world, it's over. Like, just, you might as well give up on life right away. Or like everything is about looks now. Everything about whether or not someone likes you, it's always about whether you're good looking or not. Everything about, like women, all completely shallow. They only care about if you're really good looking. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. Anyway, I don't know. I find it all interesting. I think I'm kind of a weirdo like that. I guess, maybe that's part of it too. I mean, I'm kind of a weird guy myself, so I guess I don't know. There's something about weird people that kind of attracts me, and I find them interesting, even if they're pretty clearly crazy to some extent. Yeah. Anyway, the point of this is to just say, if you want to change people's minds, if you want to make the world a better place, you got to bring people together, right? You got to engage with people, even those who are different from you and even those who might hate you. Because if you just push them away and you hate them back, well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't see what you could possibly expect to come from that other than more arguments, more fighting, more hatred. So, yeah. A lot of people get emotional about this stuff, It's understandable. You expect me to have conversations with someone who is denying my rights? Yes. Yes. I know, it's crazy, but that's really the only solution, isn't it? What's the alternative? The alternative is you kill each other. Right? At the point where you can't talk to people, that's the point at which, like, your resort is literally violence. Like, that's violence, or completely separating yourself into separate societies and not interacting with each other. I mean, think about it, right? If you don't have conversation, if you can't discuss things with people, even people who hate you, what is there left to do? Communication is the alternative to violence. But I understand it's not easy to do. We are all very emotional creatures, and sometimes you just want to tell someone to go fuck themselves, right? Like, well, I gotta be nice to that guy? I gotta go talk to that guy, that asshole who believes that stuff? Get the fuck out of here, right? Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.